All right, we're back here with another episode of the Greater Texas Podcast. So we have a pretty interesting show today. It's a little bit different than we normally have. We have with me a couple of lawyers from small offices like myself, and we're going to kind of talk about, normally we talk about building a better Texas here. Today we're going to talk about building a better business and building a better law firm. A couple of folks that are kind enough to join me today. Robert LaBre, who's the founder of LaBre Law Office in Edwardsburg, Michigan. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And Gery Rodriguez, the founder of Rodriguez-Albizu Law Office in Palm Beach County. Is that the right way to
Stewart, our main office is in Stewart, and the satellite office in Palm Beach Gardens.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Let's start with a little bit of intro. Robert, you are from Michigan. You grew up in Michigan. Is that right?
Yeah. Small rural area, Cass County.
Where is it? I think I'm also from Michigan, but on a different part of Michigan. That's like on the Michigan-Indiana border areas?
Right. So I actually have a dual license in both Michigan and Indiana so that I can go between the two borders. And if you know where Notre Dame is, South Bend, Indiana.
Sadly, I do. Yes.
Yeah, right. Everybody's go Irish up there. Nobody cares around here. So it's like just this side of the border on Michigan. It's
Gotcha.
Just 15 miles.
Gotcha. Trying to remember, I think like when you had big events or something like that, wouldn't it be like cheaper to buy like your alcohol in Indiana or something like that for the big events?
No. For the big events, they come up to Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Indiana, which is like Bible Belt area,
right?
They wouldn't sell liquor or alcohol on Sundays,
Gotcha.
So everybody had to come up to Michigan. Now they've changed that law recently, but that's what the big deal was. Is Sundays was Catholic, nobody drank, and everybody was come up to Edwardsburg, just right on the line to buy
Gotcha.
all the
Gotcha.
liquor.
The wagon of cheer.
You got to have your celebrations.
And right now, you went to the Marines right out of high school. Is that right?
Right.
What was the decision for that?
Pretty much not ready for college, get out of the parents' house. I mean, it was not hard for me to leave them. It was like, I am out, see you when I get back.
Gotcha. And what did it have like a big influence on your future then? Did it mold you?
Sure. I mean, you can't go into the Marine Corps and not come out affected one way or the other. I mean, boot camp by itself is going to change you, and then the fleet is definitely going to change you. So yeah, absolutely. It really installed a lot more discipline in me, a lot more self-confidence in me. But everybody asked that question, right? Would you go back? I'm like, I'm 42.
How long were you in?
I was in 4 years. I did 98 to 2002.
Gotcha. And then went to Western?
Yep. After military,
What'd you study at Western?
So it was history and
That's
philosophy.
Western Michigan.
Yeah, Western Michigan.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I started off biomed.
Yeah.
And I hated biomed. Like I wanted to become a dentist. I had it in my mind, I'm going to become a dentist. And first semester, I was throwing my biology book against the wall because I couldn't care less about any of it. So then I transitioned to philosophy and history, which couldn't be any more useless in today's society. So it came but I really enjoyed, the classes. I really enjoyed debating with the professors, but you get to that point where you're in your senior year. What's the next step? And you're like, well, I guess a lawyer would be good. I can join my dad's law firm. Let's see how that pans out.
I guess philosophy, history. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So then you went to law school and then decided to go back to Edwardsburg and join your dad's firm?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And I mean, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but when you join a firm in, Edwardsburg's a small town, right?
Right.
You kind of practicing a little bit of everything at that point right away? Or?
So yeah, you get tossed into it and you don't have a high volume of cases because there's a lot of people. You have a high volume of cases because you're repeat business or a person has multiple cases that they need attendance to. And that said, you're not dealing with super high complex litigation in a small rural town.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people approach and it's like, how do you practice probate, criminal, and family? And it's like, well, I'm not dealing with multi-million dollars all the time. My typical customer is between $40,000 and $150,000 being their annual income per year. You're not dealing with super complex and everybody's penny pinching. It's sort of like get in there, get out, get me a decent settlement, move on. So my profit comes from come in, do a good job, get them well informed, and then move on. But it's the repeat business. It's having multiple cases per customer.
Gotcha.
You're able to make a good profit from it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. And Gery, get a little background on you. Are you from Florida originally?
Yeah, my family's from Puerto Rico, but I was born in Tallahassee.
Okay.
Grew up in Miami. Family moved there when I was 3.
It's kind of the exact opposite of Edwardsburg, Michigan, right? Like,
Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
And then you went to University of Miami Law. Where'd you go to undergrad?
I went to Florida International University.
Gotcha.
Down in Miami as well. Studied finance, business administration, and then decided to go to law school.
What was the driving factor for going to law school? How did you figure that out?
So what I wanted to do was actually be a real estate developer. That was it. So I took a class in real estate finance in undergrad, and the professor, who was a loan officer at a commercial bank, brought in one of his development clients to give a little talk to us. And I stepped outside the class after he was done and spoke with him and said, "How do I do this?" And mom, dad, uncle, cousin, nobody's a real estate developer. I don't have that connection. And he told me, he said, "Look, real estate development, 90% of it is law. So you can either pay attorneys a lot of money to do it, or you can become an attorney yourself and do it yourself." I said, "Well, JD's a pretty versatile degree. When you come to think of it, I mean, what, half of Fortune 500 CEOs, I think, something like that, are JDs. It's a high percentage. I'm not sure if it's 50, but it's a high percentage of Fortune 500 CEOs actually have a JD. So I decided, let's go to law school, and of course graduated in 08, which was the worst time to. Could not have timed that any worse if I had tried to go into real estate. And so that at that point it was survival of the fittest, and litigation is countercyclical. So I went into litigation.
Gotcha. Now, we're going to talk about the law practice and everything of that. Are you doing any development now or investing now in real estate?
So I don't do investment or any development of my own, but we certainly have a very active real estate practice, both on the residential and the commercial side's growing.
And during law school, you were a judicial intern for the Southern District?
I did, yes. I interned with the Honorable Edward Torres from Magistrate Judge, Southern District of Florida.
How was that experience?
Great experience. Frankly, it was an eye-opener. Highly recommended anyone out there who's listening, who's thinking about going to law school, or if you're in law school, take a semester, go intern at the federal bench, find a good district judge or magistrate judge that will sort of take you under their wing and learn from them, because it's an eye-opening experience to learn behind the scenes, kind of like how the law works, especially in the courtroom.
Gotcha. And then you started out at a big firm? Is that right? I think it was a Greenberg Torres, right?
So I started out actually at a boutique international law firm down in Miami, doing high-end, complex international litigation. It was really interesting practice. Sued foreign governments. We represented foreign nationals with their interests here in the U.S., U.S. persons with interests predominantly in Latin America and the Caribbean, given that we're in Miami, being bilingual, the whole thing. And then I did that for about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, and I joined Greenberg's West Palm Beach office as a commercial litigator.
Gotcha.
And that's how I ended up there.
And when did you start your firm?
2015, September 2015.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, Robert, you kind of hinted at this a little bit, but as a small town lawyer, from the beginning, did you have to, I mean, was your dad teaching you how to do these different areas? Like, because one of the things like you learn really quickly as a lawyer is you can learn a lot in law school, but you certainly don't know how to be a lawyer, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what was that like coming out and starting?
So it was like being fed the law through a fire hose. I mean, it was like, here's your court rules. And I got duly licensed quickly for both Michigan and Indiana. And you guys know, as litigators or being in the court, every county has its own culture, its own policies and procedures of how they handle it. I mean, you've got the court rules for the state, but then when you get to the county level, it's sort of like this judge does that judge does this. So it was a big learning curve, and I was very fortunate for my dad to really help guide me through that. He and I have a great relationship. There's some father-son teams out there. You see them, and it's like, you guys need to split up. You guys don't do well together. But he and I have a very close bond, and so without his mentorship, there's no way I could have survived it. There's just no way.
Were you in the court pretty quickly then?
Oh yeah, like here's your first case and trial by fire, and it was a spousal support case, and I'm thinking I'm going to be able to just settle this out. Everybody settles,
right?
The attorney was like, yeah, but you're new, and I don't think you know what you're doing, so off we go.
Interesting. That would have been quite the eye opener. And Gery, what about you? When you first, how did you get into litigation, or how did you learn about it?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate. I mean, the first firm I worked at, it was really a wonderful firm. The partners there really took an interest in mentoring me. Personally, I had the real privilege of having some great mentors along the way that really helped me out. And they weren't a large outfit. They were, we had maybe about 7 attorneys or so when I joined them. And so they can't hide you in a broom closet just to do research all day or,
right.
Read through documents. And so we had our practice at the time was very much federal court centric. And as I'm sure as you all know, federal court, you gotta lay everything out because most of it's done on the papers. Judges read more. They're very educated in their own right. They're sophisticated in the law. So, you have to lay out your factual pattern and then do your memorandum of law, and cite out and support everything with accurate case citations and propositions of the law, and not just throw mud up there to see what sticks type of thing. Like sometimes in state court you can kind of get away with. And so I just worked a ton. I mean, at that time I was billing close to 3,000 hours a year.
Holy cow.
For about 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, but I don't regret it. I mean, they worked me to the bone, but I loved them, loved working with them, and it made me the attorney who I am today. That's where I really sort of learned how to practice law. I learned how to handle a courtroom. I learned how to write a brief. I learned how to depose a witness, defend a deposition, set up the place setting at the table, as I say. You set up the chessboard for your case, and figure out, if they move their pawn, where you're going to move your rook, type of thing.
Right.
And so it was a great experience. Definitely worthwhile. Do I want to bill 3,000 hours? No. Not ever again, but it was the right thing at the right time.
One thing, so I started at a big firm, and and it was in litigation, but at the firm, it was in Houston, and you do what you do at a big firm. You do document reviews, and you do writing the brief that the partner will tear apart and all that stuff. But one of the things that you learn really quickly is you don't know how to do I don't know how to file anything. Here, you need to get this filed. How do I do that? Right. Thank God at that point we had a legal secretary that knew all these things, because I had no idea what to do any of that stuff. And I remember the first or second week I was there was our client. I can't remember what the issue was, but we were having a meeting with a neighboring landowner, our client, and the city. And the partner came into my office. I didn't know anything about this case. He's like, "Here, there's a meeting on this in a few minutes. Why don't you go attend that?" And at some point, they're like, "Well, can we do that, Sean?" The client's like that, and in the middle of this meeting, and everybody looks at me, and I'm like, "Are you kidding? I have no idea what's going on here."
Where's the file?
Right, exactly. So that was an interesting time. Anyway, so the reason I wanted you guys here, like I said, it's called Greater Texas, and we talk about building a better Texas. And today I want to talk about sort of our growth and what small firms and small businesses in general really are going through. And we're all connected because I'll give a little plug at Alan Murphy at Law Office Success, who's helps us with our branding and our marketing. And so if you're a small law firm out there and you want to expand, I highly recommend Alan at Law Office Success. And also we're all how to manage members, how to manage a small law firm. And so we all have delusions of grandeur or illusions of grandeur, not delusions, I guess, of being, bigger law firms and growing, and not just being solos. And so I kind of want to talk to you all about what your sort of goals are and your plans are and how you're going to get there. So I guess, Robert, we'll start with you. So what's your kind of plan and goal for taking what you want to do with your firm?
So I'll try to keep it a short answer.
Yeah.
But my goals and my plans, right? Like right now, I am buying another office in another adjacent rural village. Because for me, I can put two more attorneys, but this is the next doubling of my income, right? But I practice in both states, and Indiana is much more urban. I mean, I got South Bend, Elkhart, Granger there. I want to eventually have a office down in Granger and build that out as well. And I would like to have, my dream, my delusion of grandeur, if you will, right now,
I shouldn't have said delusion,
is 9 attorneys under me, hopefully 8 to 10 million, somewhere in that range. I anticipate the next building putting me up to about 1.6.
Okay.
Somewhere in that range.
And so you have this will be so you decided to buy a firm as opposed to like starting your own.
No. So it's
Did I misunderstand?
I'm not buying the firm. I'm buying the building.
Oh,
But it was from an attorney who's retiring.
Gotcha.
So he's getting done. He's moving out, and I'm like, hey, can you give me your client list too? And he's like, no, I'm not done with my client list. Yeah. But you can have my building because I'm getting done with that. And I'm like, whatever, because it's literally on the corner of the main intersection. I mean,
Gotcha.
It's like it's for real estate purposes. It's the prime location.
Gotcha. And so that is how far is that from where you Edwardsburg?
It's literally a 10-minute drive.
Okay.
But all the big dogs that were in that village making decent cash are done. So it's
Gotcha.
like vacant. They've got a void there right now for attorneys, and I'm like, time to move in.
And what are like the obstacles to that? Like what do you need to get accomplished to be able to do that?
So it's obviously an older building. You're in real estate.
Yep.
You're in business. So I'm doing all the inspections on this older building for its roof. I am looking at the old furnace. I'm looking at the technological capabilities. It needs all new furniture. It needs a new paint job, all the flooring. So what is the total loan? I'm going through that loan process, and that's been a joy. We all got PPP loans. Did everybody get
Yep.
PPP?
Yeah, sure.
All right, you guys probably got forgiven almost immediately. I tasked that down to another employee who is no longer with us. She didn't do it.
Oh.
So I found out about that in February, and then was like, oh no.
Was there a deadline? I don't remember. Was there a deadline?
The deadline just passed in April. You had to have
Okay.
it done by April 1. I made my application in March 3rd, and I just got forgiven. But they were already starting to charge me and saying I need to pay it back.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what is this? So it's getting that forgiven, getting the credit score back up so you can get like a $300,000 loan so that you can do your signage and everything
Gotcha.
else that goes with it. But yeah, that is a project in and of itself, the building, and then manning the building is also part of the
which we'll
project.
talk about a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So Gery, what are your plans for your firm? Like,
So what we're doing right now is it's interesting. For the past couple of years, the real estate side has been unintentionally so. I didn't design it this way, but the real estate side, because of the way the market's going, especially in South Florida and where we're located, it's been gangbusters. So it's been the driving force of the revenue for the firm. And I'm the only attorney at the firm that handles overseeing. I have two paralegals that work for me, real estate paralegals. That's all they do. And I oversee them myself. I'm the only one that does. And I have two other attorneys that work for me now who handle the business law side of the firm. And I manage that side too, but at least I'm able to sort of,
Right.
I bring sort of the clients in and I sort of feed it to them. I discuss it with them. This is the game plan. This is what we want to do. Ready, break, go run with it type of thing. And really to get us, I think, to the next level, one of the things, I'm doing a couple of things, really. One of the big ones is I'm starting to focus much more in on the numbers of the firm. Figuring out, payroll with the payroll impact on the bottom line of the firm, marketing spend, are we getting that return on whatever it is that we're doing? If we're going to do a PPC campaign, are we tracking it? Are we able to determine where those leads are coming from? Is it worth what we're doing? Do we need to make a change? Go another direction? Sort of A/B tests, all those sort of fun things, and sort of really hone in on the numbers and learn how the numbers sort of help. Because when I first started, I'm sure when we all first started, you can make $20,000 a month and your overhead was $4,000. It was like no big deal. You know what I mean? Like it's not hard to go find $4,000 or $5,000 to make your month, but when you start getting to the 1.6, those are $90,000, $100,000 months. Your expenses are now jumped from $5,000 to $50,000 or $60,000. It becomes the swing is much more impactful, especially if you start seeing revenue start to decline in certain practice areas as a result of changing times, the sand shifting a little bit. Luckily for us, litigation is counter-cyclical to the transactional sort of real estate side. So as real estate starts to wane a little bit, we're seeing the litigation start to really pick up and ramp up now.
Uh-oh.
So it's
that doesn't speak well for the real estate market.
Well, it's what goes up must come down. It just always is what it is. I mean, when folks were used to borrowing at 2.5,
That's right.
2.8, 3. And I was meeting with a mortgage broker yesterday. They were looking at rates at 5.5, 6,
right.
on a 30 on a primary residence. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's a big difference to that borrower and to that purchaser. And so, it's natural. I think it has to happen anyways. There has to be some. At least in our market, the prices were just they were going out of control. And I think anyone who looked at it would tell you honestly that they were, or that they are. So it needs to probably shift a little bit, which is fine. But now we got to figure out if this is going to come down a little bit, what's going to pick up to sort of help carry us through and keep us going through it. And so that, along with hiring and retaining, good talent, bringing in the right fit. Staffing is so huge for the success of a small business. I mean, it's amazing.
We're all trying to grow our firms, right? And we're going to talk about the marketing and branding and all that in a minute, but let's talk about non-marketing and branding issues that we're all facing. And I guess let's start with staffing because that's what's on everybody's mind. So, whatever wants to start, like, what
about you? You're growing too. You're going through it.
So I've had to add and replace a lawyer within the last year and a half. So I've had to hire 2 lawyers in the last year and a half, and both of them took me, 6 months to find somebody decent. It's been really difficult. I mean, I honestly thought, we're based in Austin. I thought, this is great. Who doesn't want to live in Austin, right? Like, I mean, it's going to be so easy. Because I looked at law schools, I looked nationally. I figured everybody's going to want to move to Austin. No. And the other issue is that's killing us, the small firms, our big firm salaries are so big now. And that, not that we're paying big firm rates, but if they're paying, big firms are starting over $200,000 a year now from right out of law school. And so obviously I'm not paying that to a young lawyer. I can't, but it means I have to pay whatever it is, 120 as opposed to 100 or something like that. And those are real issues when you're at a small firm. And so one of the things I've started looking into is looking at outsourcing some of this stuff. So I know I have a friend who she runs a company that has South African lawyers, for example. And obviously they're not licensed here, but they can work as kind of paralegals for us and help us out that way. So we've started to look at those options as opposed to hiring a lawyer on staff.
So that kind of segues into what I'm dealing with as well. So in a rural spot, right, I'm on the east side of the state, and all the talent is like in Grand Rapids or Detroit, and I'll have them on the line. It'll be the right pay, the right benefits, and everything. But when you're dealing with more seasoned lawyers, I don't want a puppy. I don't want to deal with that training and that constant revolving door of questions. I want somebody a little bit more seasoned that's been around and they just want to do the law. They're tired of the practice and the management of it. They want to do just the law. That's my avatar, quintessential attorney. But getting them over to where I'm at, that's the difficulty. I mean, what am I going to sell them on? The beautiful lakes around my area and that we have so much woods that you can go running down. I mean, that's not really a draw. They like the city. Most of the talent likes the bigger city life. So what I've been contemplating is making it so they would be a lawyer for the firm. Now, I don't know how I'm going to design that. Should I make them of counsel? Should it just be contract work where it's a case-by-case basis, hour by hour? Like, what is it that I should be paying for it? Because that's a big part of how do you design this so that if you take off like a big bird, I still can not have to worry about how I was supposed to pay you.
Now, are your clients, do they want to meet face-to-face? Are they going to want to meet somebody and sit down with somebody?
So, yes, but who cares? Everybody needs the help right now. I mean, they will take whatever I give them. And I believe that to be a large part because this is a 40-year firm. I mean, we've been in the area for 40 years. I go places, and although you guys know me as Rob, right? When I was a kid, my nickname was Bobby. Like, oh, Bobby, right? Like, you're very well known in the community. Like, they'll take what I give them. I'm not too concerned about it. But my biggest concern about creating the virtual lawyer for my firm is the control and the quality, and whether or not they would actually, if they had to do an in-person trial or in-person hearing, are they going to do it so that they come in? And then how do I incorporate them so that they actually believe in the culture of the firm? Because my culture in my firm is a lot different than I'm sure both of your firms. And that is something that you have to be physically present in to appreciate. So that's what I've been thinking about doing, but it feels like a Band-Aid. And also COVID, it feels like these other attorneys are like becoming more demanding. It's like, I'm paying you good money. Like, you don't get to set my term. No, actually I do. And I don't want to come into your office.
Well, it's certainly an employee's market, right? Like, I mean, there's no question about that because it's so, the employee market is just so hard to find.
So this is all very interesting. I love this, and thank you so much, Sean, for inviting us out here for this, because that's actually how my firm's set up. So the only staff I have in my office are my 2 real estate paralegals and my legal assistant. The 2 attorneys that I have working for me work remotely, and the gentleman I have as of counsel works remotely as well. The attorney that I had, when I was ready to first hire my first attorney to come work for me, she and I had worked together at the first firm down in Miami as associates together. And we both went our separate ways. I went up to GT. She went to another very high-end, couple other firms or whatever down in Miami. And she got to the point where she was like, I'm done with this, And I was looking for somebody, and we got along. We'd always kept in touch. So we said, well, let's work together. So she started working out remotely in Miami. Her husband's an engineer. And 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, he got a promotion to work in Las Vegas. So she's based in Las Vegas. She's not even based now even in Florida. And I was really concerned about that, because in litigation, as you know, I mean, how are you going to attend court hearings, depositions, that sort of thing, if you're all the way out over there? What are we going to do? But one of the nice little adjuncts of the pandemic was courts went to Zoom. So all of a sudden now, all the hearings that I was concerned we're going to have to do in person, the whole thing, how's this all going to worked out great, because she does them from our house.
So are they going to go back to any in-person hearings?
So it's interesting. I think that at least where we are, the smaller rural counties in Florida, they're definitely going back to in-person more and more so. Maybe motion calendar hearings they're going to do on Zoom, because why drag everybody over for a 5-minute hearing? Special sets, they might even do some of those via Zoom, but they're getting more and more and more. They want in-person stuff. Evidentiary hearings, in person. They're not doing the Zoom stuff anymore really for that. The larger metropolitan areas, Miami, Broward, maybe some Palm Beach, Orlando Metro, those areas at least, they're staying with Zoom, at least for the foreseeable future.
Gotcha.
Trials are doing in person, I think, for the most part. But the trials are doing, but everything else, I mean, even federal court is via Zoom.
So I got a question for you real quick. I got to jump in here real quick.
Yeah, of course.
Like, do you have the way I've been thinking it is the clients want to come to the office, and you can't anticipate them. This is my thinking, all right? You correct me how you do it, because I'm curious. But my thinking is I can't expect my client to really understand Zoom. Some of them do, but some of them don't. And if I just want to make it a systemized process, I anticipate building it out so that they're coming to my office for the Zoom meeting with the virtual attorney. Part 2 is, do you have it your own, if you have it that way, do you have it that way so they come to the office for the virtual
Some do.
meeting?
Some come to the office, and really what ends up happening is that I handle pretty much all the intake. The 2 other attorneys that work for me, sometimes they will, for example, when I'm out of town, like today, to not have someone just go to voicemail and sit there till next Tuesday when I'm back in the office. One of the other attorneys will actually handle the call, whatever, and handle the intake process. But by and large, 95% of it, I do it myself. So they come into the office. If they want to come into the office, they meet with me or what have you. Sometimes I'll have one of the attorneys on the speakerphone.
But doesn't that have you doing intake left and right? Like you've got barely any time for production if you're doing all that.
Well, that's the biggest problem I have, is that I need to get out of production because I cannot grow the firm to where I want it to grow by being stuck in production.
Right.
So I have to get out of production to be able to continue to grow the firm to where I want it to go. One of the biggest challenges I had, I'm curious to know if I wonder if you had the same problem, being that you're a generational firm and around where you are. So when I started the firm, the only thing I had to sell was Gery. right? I had to sell Gery to everybody. Gery's the man. Gery's gonna, right? Gery's the man. He's gonna resolve your problems, whatever. To do this, that, what have you. But when I started bringing on other attorneys to come work for me, I had to quickly learn I can't sell Gery anymore, because then the clients want, right? The clients want me to take the depot. The clients wants me to handle the hearings, to write the briefs, whatever.
Right.
And I can't do that anymore. So I had to start selling the firm. And to be honest with you, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't name the firm when I named it.
Do they have trade names?
Yeah, they do. They do. But I would have named it something just not with my last name on it.
Or anybody's last name.
Or anybody's, without any, exactly.
Business law of South Florida. Or
It was
something like
something, whatever it is. But something that was not, because then now what I'm doing is selling the firm. So that is the transition that I've had to make now. Gery's there and I'm still around.
So,
but
for me, I feel like that train has left the station. I could reinvent the wheel, but it's so ingrained.
Yeah,
I mean, the football fields, the soccer fields, the church bulletins, all of it. And it's just now starting to get away from, I knew your father. Tell him I said hi next time you see him. It's just starting to go, come see me. But at the same time, where I'm trying to deal with that, like selling the firm, is you don't get your pick. And I've instructed my receptionist to say, I don't care if they've asked for me specifically. They get whatever lawyer is on the next roundup. And if they say, well, I want Rob or nobody, I was like, okay, see ya. Because our numbers are jiving where I can be that cocky right now.
Right.
I can just be like, look, I'm not going to do that.
Right. But the culture, though, that you're mentioning earlier is very important. That's one of the things I've had to struggle with, because I think that we have a great firm culture in the office, but the only ones who experience that are the legal assistant and the two paralegals.
Yeah.
My other attorneys that work for me, the one who's been with me the longest, but that's because we've known each other for so long, we're friends, the whole thing, what have you. Her and I have such a great relationship that doesn't really concern me as much, but we just brought on another new attorney, and she works remotely from Miami. So she's come up to the West Palm area for depots or whatever on a couple of our cases, but she works from home, in Miami, and trying to get her synced into that culture, get used to feeling like I'm part of a team, I'm part of a community, I'm not here in isolation. I think it's huge. I think that's really important. And, even more to that point, this morning, by happenstance, I got the email from the ABA Journal that shut out the weekly articles or whatever it is and one of them was they did a survey of associates at large law firms. Essentially was what keeps you at the firm or what gets you going? What are the factors? Income, while was important, salary was important, that sort of thing, it wasn't the number one item that kept people at the firms.
What was it?
It was more so firm culture, ability to, for the younger, so it was ability to learn from culture, feel like they're contributing. For the older, it seemed to be more of, like, they value me, they value the contributions I make, and I'm able to sort of work on my cases and sort of not be micromanaged, that sort of thing. So that was salary was important. It was, but it wasn't the most important. Interesting. Which I thought was very interesting.
So one of the issues that we faced a lot also with growth is just having our policies and procedures in place. Like, I keep trying to make the firm, especially with some of our different, like we do a property tax business where we protest property taxes. In Texas, it has to be done every year by everybody, basically. And so we have, like, I don't know, we'll probably protest 250 commercial property taxes this year. And just trying to make that where it's an assembly line, right? Like, and not just property taxes, everything, right? So setting up policies and procedures where when they're in the door, step 1 is this, step 2 is this, step 3 is this, and it's just seamless. And we've really struggled with that. And not that we've done, mistakes or anything, we're missing anything. It's just that it takes a lot more time and my time to make sure everything's getting shepherded through.
Building that Ford Model T, right?
Yeah, right.
And
Exactly.
That's the problem with where I think all of us are at is we've all got associates, but we don't have enough associates so that we can take it down to part-time so that we can actually do that work. it's really, the way I feel about it is, okay, first, I hate drafting policies and procedures, like nails on a chalkboard for me. I absolutely hate it.
You could do a video.
Oh yeah, let's do videos. Yeah, that's what that one keeps on telling us. We love videos too. But you have to do it at night after you're done. And I don't know if you've got kids, but I got kids. And so if I'm home by 6:30, I'm early, right? And kids are down by 8, 9, 10-ish. And now it's 10, 10:30. I'm only thinking about having a drink and trying to get to sleep and put the anxiety out of my head about the next following day's work. And
Well, probably for you that's the time with the wife.
right.
You know, I have an hour with my wife alone, essentially, which is after the kids go to bed at 9:30, 10. You have 1 hour to watch a show or talk.
Where do we be human here and just say, let's go in to do it? And let's spend this half hour a day. Because it really does, you have to, in my mind, with where we're at, it really does come down to it's going to have to be like a half hour to an hour a day consistently as a habit. And hopefully, you know, it all is created. But it's challenging to find that time.
Well, and I've discovered that if you don't so we'll set up procedures, we'll set up policies, right? But if I don't do it and if I don't enforce it, nobody else in the firm is going to do it because they're going to say, "Oh, it's not important to Bukowski, so what do we care?"
But you know what I found is great, and this is where it really dawned on me that PSPs are so sorely needed, which is one of our real goals this year. To lay those out, we kept on having turnover at our legal assistant level. And they're the ones that do the mailing for like all the closings that we do or whatever. They're the ones that send out like all the checks and this and that and whatever and blah, blah, blah. They open all the soft files and hard files for all the real estate files and what have you. And so we had this lady, you know, she took over the post and she was like, so how do I send stuff by priority mail? How do I send stuff by FedEx?
They don't even know what certified mail is. Are you kidding me? No. I hired you as my mail clerk. What are you doing?
I mean, in her defense, she knew what certified mail was, but she just didn't know how we internally process that because we have online accounts with like Postal Service and with FedEx for processing the labels and that sort of thing. So we had to teach her again. One of my paralegals had to sit down and sort of teach it to her, like step by step or whatever. Meanwhile, my paralegals are doing what she's supposed to be doing, which is processing real estate files. But when she went to leave us, she said, "Listen, if you don't mind, I'm gonna take a stab at putting like a little manual together for the next person that takes over." Super, yeah, great.
Please.
And she did like screenshots and like, this is how you do things. So when the next legal assistant came in, we said, here's a notebook. And she was like, this is awesome. This is great. Now I know where to go to do a primary mail label. I know how to access the FedEx account so I can do a FedEx label, you know. We use stamps.com. I don't know if you guys use that or whatever. I know how to get on stamps.com and print out stamps, you know, for the firm. I mean, so it's critically important because it saves so much time and energy
for the rotation of employees,
which is money at the end of the day.
And the I know we joke about this, but one of my advisors from HTM has really been pushing to have the staff or whatever do videos of their job, basically, you know, just short things. So it's basically that notebook, but on video. And that'll be for the next person that comes in, they can just watch the video and see some of those processes.
If Alan can't get me on video, I doubt I'll be able to get my staff on video. I'm just throwing it out there.
So let's talk about sort of Alan's ballywick here, and talk about branding and marketing. I know when I first started really doing a big push on this, you kind of first have to figure out who you are, and then figure out who your ideal client is. And you know, it takes a while, and it takes a while to kind of keep refining that. And I just don't know, where are you guys sort of on that process, or how did that hit you, or what are you doing for branding and marketing?
So for branding, it is basically be everywhere, because it's a pretty low cost for me to market in my neck of the woods. So football fields, soccer fields, that's my branding technique. Now we have different phone numbers set up for each one of these things so that we can track it.
Use a call rail.
Oh yeah, call rail that's absolutely awesome. Right. Totally worth the cost. But I don't expect that for me to be able to know if it came from that. Does that make sense? That it's just the constant touch. Wherever you are, you see me. Wherever you are, you see me. The logo, right? If you see the logo, you're instantly going to think of me. That's what I've been doing for branding, being involved in organizations and trying to make that kind of time. That's been my way of doing it. But I've found branding has been nothing compared to pay-per-clicks. It's been nothing compared to direct mailers as far as generating profit. Google My Business, my God, that has been quintessential in generating funds for our office. So that's what I've been focusing in on for our business.
So people, basically, a lot of your clients are doing Google SEO searches effectively, and that's where you're...
Yeah, attorney near me. And the reviews, do you guys build the reviews?
Try to, yeah.
That's where I haven't been as good.
So just tip of the day, what I've found to be really good at doing reviews and building them up. I've probably got, 104 on Google. I've got another 30 on my Avo, and I've got 5 on my Facebook. So breaking this down, if you see any of your clients with a Gmail account, that's Google. And they're the only ones that can leave a Google review. If they've got the yahoo.com or the Hotmail, they can't leave a Google review. They have to go to the side to Avo, but we all know, 80% of 80% of the people doing a search are on Google, which is why we bend over backwards for Google.
Right.
So whenever I see that Gmail, I'm like, these are my Gmail clients. Going to make sure they're very happy.
And so when you're doing your closing or your exit documentation, you send them an email or something request?
I've got it in templates, and there's 2 separate templates, and I time them, and I touch them twice before I start calling them. First one is that closing. I just got done with your case. We just did the statutory proofs for your divorce, you just got sentenced and there's no jail and you're on probation, blah, blah, blah. It's like, hey, you happy? Yeah, thank you so much. Handshake. Hey, you know how hard business has been for everybody around here with COVID. They're like, oh yeah, man. Like, hey, can you leave us a quick review? Don't leave details. Nobody wants to hear the details. But just like, hey, great service, communication was there. Knew that I had an attorney that knew how to handle the case. Just something broad, but it really makes a difference for our business. And they're like, yeah, sure. All right, and you only do that for the ones you know are really happy, right? Like those people. Send them the email, the template, right? And then you time it out. And then you just watch it because you'll see it come through. We all see it when it comes through. And then I send out, if it's not up there in 14 days, I send out my second email, which is the touch reminder. And if it's not up in a month, then I've got my list of names of people I know should be extraordinarily happy. And I start calling my secretary and I say, hey, you need to touch base with them just to say how it's going. Then I stop. That's the last one. Gas calls, gas calls, right? Those are timed out usually about 6 months after I get done with them, 6 months to a year. And then they're like, oh yeah, so happy to hear you. And then it's inevitably at the end of the gas call, hey, I know there's a Google review I sent you. Where are we at with that, right? Like I don't say it like that, but it's like, then I tag it in there and I'm able to generate it.
Gotcha.
So those reviews, when I started collecting them, they jumped me up 6 figures easy, and they're free. And I don't know how much equity they pay me every year at this point.
All right, I gotta get on those. Alan keeps bugging me about them, so I gotta get on. How about you, Gery? What is your sort of marketing and branding?
Yeah, so I guess I focus less so much on branding as I do trying to spend time. It's more of cultivating those new relationships. How am I getting out there? So I focus less on the branding side, worrying about the logo showing up everywhere, or what have you, as much so. On the real estate side, for example, it's a relationship business, as I'm sure Sean.
That's right.
It's. So that's one of the things, when I sit down with, the guys from HTM, they're like, your ratio of marketing over revenue is so low. Like, you need to spend more money on marketing.
Right.
And I'm like, well, the real estate side, I don't, because it's no agent has ever decided, oh, I'm going to go to Gery for his closing because I saw him on pay-per-click. That's not how it comes to the door. It's because you have some sort of value-added proposition. And so that's where we really focus in on what's our value-added proposition, especially in such a competitive market such as real estate closings and stuff like that. On the business law side, we do depend a little bit more on the LinkedIn, the Google My Business. We've tried pay-per-click a couple times. We didn't quite have the results we were looking for. So we've changed over a couple vendors. I think we're on a third vendor now.
Who you got?
Right now we're working with the PPC Foundry is our current vendor.
Okay.
And we're working with them to see how we just started with them. So we're, it takes a while. It takes 90, 120 days for it to see if it really produces any light. One of the things that really worked well for us that we were able to use to really back end our SEO was FindLaw, super lawyer top spots and stuff like that. So I got designated a rising star by Florida super lawyers when I first started the firm. And they started hitting me with their marketing. Oh, you should buy a top spot or whatever. And I was like, this is just a marketing ploy. They just want more money. Thomson Reuters wants more money from me or whatever, and that sort of thing. And
But I think people see the super lawyer stuff and they go, wow, he's a really super lawyer. And no, he paid $1,000.
Well, top 40 under 40.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what ended up happening though is that I just started working with Alan. We said, look, let's give it a shot, and we bought different categories in the different markets that we're in. And what we found was really great is that they, in particular, they have a very, very honed in, aggressive sort of SEO type of structure to their sites, to FindLaw and super lawyers. So it was a great way to back end the SEO for the firm, because when folks typed in business attorney near me, I would show up, but they would click on my not from finding my actual firm website, but because they saw my top spot on super lawyers or FindLaw, and they'll click there, they'll read my profile, whatever, and then there's a link to their website, and then they would click onto the website to learn more. And so we sort of back-ended, if you will, the SEO on, the way to sort of get on first page, whatever, on Google. That has actually worked. It worked really well. And it was something that could be done immediate, because it didn't take long for that to really catch. And meanwhile, we've continued to try to pump up content on the website with blog posts and this and that and whatever and blah, blah, blah. The same stuff that I guess we all do. Newsletters, right. The monthly newsletters or whatever, stuff like that. Gas calls. When I have the time, which is usually never, but try to do it that way, But that's really what we've been focusing on. But now we're trying to become a little bit more scientific on it, because I really am focusing on tracking, measuring, determining what that ROI is. So as soon as a call comes in, one of the first things I'll do is I'll shoot Alan an email. I got a call from this number, track it. Right. Go to CallRail, log in, figure out where did they come, what CallRail number did they hit? Because everything has a different CallRail number on it on purpose to track it.
Well, do you have your CRM?
The CRM that we're using, I don't think it's the greatest.
What do you got?
We use MyCase.
Okay.
So it's more of a practice management software as opposed to like a true CRM.
So I use MyCase also, but I have CRM also. We had Levitate, but we're switching to, we had Insightly and switching to Levitate now, which I really like quite a bit better. So
I got Lawmatics, and I don't have any complaints with how it operates. Really? It jives in. I use Practice Panther, so you guys are using MyCase for all of it, right? Case management.
Correct.
And CRM.
Correct.
Okay. Practice Panther does not have a CRM, so I had to go external with it, and Lawmatics jives with it. But check out Lawmatics if you're having issues with MyCase. If it will upload all your stuff. That you can put in forms, automatic. I get it. It's a big ask to move platforms.
Right.
It is. We try to quantify it, and I think we quantify it as like in terms of time, energy, money. It's like $150,000 project. That's just
one thing I want to talk about is something you mentioned, which was real estate being a relationship business, and obviously we're in real estate, and so for my business development. It's time consuming, because it is I am doing almost every day either a lunch, a breakfast, a coffee, a happy hour or something, and oftentimes multiple of those. And that's just because that's how my clients are gonna start to trust me. It's a long-term investment. It's a relationship business. And then the other sort of business development thing that I do a lot of is I'm in a few different networking groups, and you really gotta I really try hard to help to refer to other people, right? Like going out there and aggressively searching for referrals to give to other people is been really beneficial. And you got, I mean, you got to really want it. You got to want to help, the other people to improve their business, and it'll come back to you eventually.
So I'm curious as to how that's worked out, because my biggest gripe with the referral wagon, because I get it all the time. One of the natural leaders I get is do you do a will trust, or trust plan? We don't handle estate planning at a firm, so I'm always sort of referring that work out.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have a probate issue that comes up in one of our real estate cases. I need a probate attorney to do the probate work or whatever on it. And even with small firm attorneys out there, it doesn't seem like either they value or they don't realize it, or I don't know what it is, but there's some disconnect where anytime I get a referral from somebody, I go out of my way to respond to the person who sent me it and say, thank you for sending me so-and-so.
Right.
Very much appreciated. I'll try to keep you in mind. I mean, as long as they're competent at what they do, you know what I mean? They're not doing that one. Right. But I try to, refer back to folks that refer to me, again, as long as they're competent and I know that my client's not going to get fleeced. But it's amazing, and that's my biggest gripe right now. It's amazing, at least in where I'm at, the folks I've referred to that just, not even a thank you in return. It gets, it's aggravating.
So it is. There are a couple of networking groups where I'm in that I get to know the people really well. But I think that's kind of the key. Like I've gotten to know, like I'm thinking of a trust and estates lawyer I know that I refer to regularly, and he refers back, and it's because we've gotten to know each other enough that it's a friendship now. And that's kind of where I think it's worked, where it works the best is if you can try to become, and I know it's, there's not a lot of time and all that, but if you try to become better friends with them, then it's, hey, I'm just helping out my friend, and they're going to want to help you out too. So that's,
I'm sorry.
No bad.
Where I was thinking with you and what you were saying is, the way I look at it is, are they good at what they do?
Yeah, of course.
All right, that's my first priority.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm not going to send one of my clients to anybody, even if there's somebody I know I'm going to get reciprocal work from. If it's not the right fit, I'm not going to send my client to them. It's going to be like, this person's going to square you away. That's first part. I've even sent business to people I don't like, and I'm just like, look, this person knows what they're doing. Mentally, I'm like, kind of a jerk, but, they're going to be able to help you out. What I've been trying to do for that person that doesn't send you the work back is similar to what you're saying, Sean, and that is work on the relationship aspect. So I'm pretty reclusive. I'm not huge into spending more time with people I don't really know than I absolutely have to. But it also is a big part of the referral business. We have to get to know these people.
Sure.
And guess what? I don't think that they're any more interested in spending more time with me or any of us than they absolutely have to.
You seem like a...
But, giving gifts, so I start off with thank you cards, especially if I get feedback from the client saying, hey, thank you for sending me to so-and-so. They did great work. Also calling that person if I know they went to them and saying, hey, they complimented you, thought you should know. Thank you for doing that. And then, of course, the lunches and the breakfast invitations. But a gift also helps. Gift cards, not just office swag like a coffee cup with my logo on it, but something that they want.
Like a nice tumbler with your logo?
Yeah, oh, yes, thank you so much. I will cherish this for the rest of my life. But if you know what they like if they like golfing or something like that, try not to give something ridiculous and something they already have.
And that's what I do, but it also ends up being time because my social outings tend to be inviting them to go play golf, which is a 5-hour endeavor.
Yeah.
Taking them out on the boat, and I invite not only them but their families. They love that because now it's not just the client or the referral partner or whatever. Golfing is like that, right? I'm taking you away from your family for your business, and it's just the two of us hanging out,
right? Or
with another two guys. But if I invite you out on the weekend with your wife or your husband and your children to come on the boat with me and the wife and the kids, even if we spend a whole afternoon, I have yet to have anyone that tells me, hey, Gery, this really sucks. Don't invite me to the sandbar again. All right? Don't do it. I just don't want the invite. But it's time. I mean, it's time consuming. It's very.
We don't have a lot.
Yeah, you really have to sort of pick and choose. One thing that I've started to do now, though, is sharing the stage. So I do a lot of teaching and stuff like that, giving presentations, and I had folks that tell me, Gery, do you know someone who does X, Y, or Z? And so then, sure, I can invite one of my colleagues to come out and do that. And so one of the value adds I try to give now to the referral part, again, folks that are competent, know what they're doing, not going to anybody who's not going to do the job right, but inviting them on and introducing them not just to one potential client, but to a whole room of potential clients. But I also think it takes it upon them to understand and realize what it is that you're doing as that person inviting them, inviting them on there.
Well, guys, this has been a great conversation, but we have gone on for a while, so I kind of want to wrap it up here. And normally we end, I say, well, give me your way to build a better Texas. But here I'll say, what are your sort of advice to somebody starting out to build a better firm or to build a better business? Do you have some advice for somebody just giving it a go?
Yeah, get a coach. Get somebody to guide you through. I absolutely knew zip about business. With HTM, it took at least 2-3 years for me to start getting some of these concepts in my mind. It's expensive, but it is so worth it to have somebody helping you get through these, why aren't you tracking your numbers and holding you accountable of learning how to actually be a business person. Absolutely get a coach would be number 1, 2, and 3. The rest comes after that.
Gotcha. Jared?
Yeah, I mean, I echo that sentiment. I'll tell you that I've seen, one of the things I saw recently is that there seems to be more younger attorneys in particular coming out of law school, whatever, or spending just a couple of years at a firm and then trying to throw out their own shingle. I would say learn your craft. If you're in the field of law, especially, learn your craft first, because I don't know about your all's bars, but there are a ton of pitfalls just waiting to snare you if for the unwary, if you're not watching yourself. But 2, I think a lot of it has to do with mindset. And mindset, I think, was critically important, which is one of the great things I think HTM helped me out with. When I started the firm, it was, how do I replace my income that I'm making at the firm and have better quality of life? But it was a job, right? You owned your own job. Since coming to HTM and took a couple of years to sort of get there, it's shift to, now I want to own a business. But that's very different. Mm-hmm. Owning a business is very different than owning a practice.
Yeah. Being a lawyer is way different from being a business owner.
That's
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely.
And I love being a lawyer so much. I love the fight. I love the heat. And so it's like, all right, you need to do these videos and policies and procedures. Like, but you're taking me away from what I love, and that ain't it. And it's like, yeah. So yeah, the coaches go towards it.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much, guys. I hope everybody enjoyed this. It was a little different episode to kind of look into running a law firm and running a business. Hope you enjoyed it. Robert LaBre from LaBre Law Office in Edwardsburg, Michigan. Thank you so much. If you're in that area, look them up. Just Google Edwardsburg or LaBre Law Firm, basically.
Basically.
Okay. And Gery Rodriguez-Albizu Law Firm in South Florida. And just Google that. Is that the best way? Or?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.